So once we've done that, we're gonna move on to the waistband. If you are doing the optional waistband tabs, then you can follow along with this sew along video, as I will also be doing the optional waistband tabs. If you are skipping the waistband tabs, that's quite all right. You can skip ahead a little bit here because the first part will be the waistband tabs. So let's move our jackets out of the way and make sure you have all of your waistband pieces handy. So when we need them, we have them close by. And grab your back tabs. You should have 4 pieces. Okay, so I ended up having a scrap of fabric of my contrast, so I just went ahead and cut that out really quickly. So what we're gonna do is put our tabs right sides together. And we're going to stitch the long, 2 long and 1 short side at a 5/8 inch seam allowance, leaving one of the short ends open. So to better visualize that, I'm going to put clips here on the sides that we will be stitching. So we're gonna stitch around and stitch around, and then we're gonna come back. So I've just stitched my tabs. Now we're going to trim our seam allowance about in half and clip the corners. Okay, once we've done that, let's turn our turn our tabs out to the right sides, and we'll press. And we can jam a chopstick or something, knitting needle, to help turn it. Just be careful not to poke the corners out too much. Okay, and we're gonna press. Press these really, really well. I'm gonna press them really crisp and really flat. I'm gonna poke this corner out a little bit better. All right, so I've got my tabs and they are pressed nicely. So what we're going to do is turn the tab, we've already turned the tab through and we pressed it. Now we're going to top stitch around the 3 sides, approximately 1/8 of an inch from the edge. We're just gonna do some nice top stitching all the way around. Okay, I've got 2 tabs. So once you have done this step and done all the top stitching and everything, and you have 2 tabs, then what you need to do is grab your back waistbands, I should say, waistbands, and using the markings on the pattern here. Oh, apparently I only transferred the marking on one side. That was pretty goofy of me, wasn't it? Should have transferred this marking and I didn't. Okay. Using the pattern markings, what we need to do is make sure that our tab here is aligned with the raw edge. So actually I need this one over here and this one over here, okay? And we want them aligned with the raw edge. of the waistband. And what we can do is baste the tabs in place using a very loose 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I've got my back waistband pieces, I've got my tabs. What we need to do is lay our tabs out onto one of the back pieces, align them, and pin it in place. Now you want the side that you did the top stitching on to be the side that is up, okay? And we want the ends that are finished to be pointing towards the center back here. So we can baste the tabs in place using a very loose 1/2 inch seam allowance along each side. If you've never basted before, that just means you're gonna let your stitch length out as far as you can let it out. On my sewing machine, that's like a 4 or 5 setting, and it will just make very loose temporary stitches on the back pieces. Once we have basted, we will grab our right front waistband pieces and we will put those on. And then we'll be dealing with the left front waistband pieces and put those on. Let's go baste this now though. I'm not going to show you the basting because it's literally just baste right over, and that's it. I've just basted my waistband tabs into place. Now we need to grab our right front waistband and we need to place with the right sides together. We need to place this onto our back waistband. So if you get confused, because it is confusing, go ahead and hold this up and pretend like you're wearing it. Which side is the right? This one. So flip it over. This is the side. This is the right side as worn. Left side, based on what you're viewing, potentially, but it's the right side as worn. So we need to grab the pattern piece here and we need to align the right front waistband over the back waistband. We're gonna clip it on the side together, the rights together. And now we can stitch this at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. We don't need to use top stitching thread. We're just gonna stitch this seam right there. So let's go do that now. Okay, I've just stitched all of the waistband pieces together, but I do need to press them open to reduce bulk. Everything has now been pressed. So what we need to do is turn the top edge of the waistband that doesn't have the tabs. We're gonna turn this under by 5/8 of an inch, not the one with tabs, the plain one. We're going to turn the top edge. Okay, so the bottom edge is the really long curvy edge. The top edge is the shorter curve edge. We're gonna turn this over by 5/8 of an inch, seam allowance, and press it, creating a little memory hem here. It's gonna help us when we stick it all together, which is why we do all this pressing. Just helps us later. Don't skip pressing, because you will regret it. Okay, once we've pressed it, now what we need to do is place the waistband and the waistband lining right sides together. We've got all these little notches to perfectly tell us where to go. And the folded edge should be on top, as it is. And what we're going to do is pin everything together, and we're going to stitch around the short sides and the bottom long side with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. We're going to clip everything together. Okay, now we're going to stitch everything around the short ends and the long end at that 5/8 inch seam allowance, leaving the folded top long edge open. Okay, so let's go do that right now. Okay, we're stitching the waistband seam together, 5/8 inch seam allowance. We aren't using top stitching thread. So the folded edge you want to include in your seam. All right, good job. Wonderful, so we've just stitched this down. Now, if you might anticipate what we're going to do next. We're going to trim the seam allowance bulk, and we're gonna remove the corner bulk as well, clip them, and cut the seam allowance to approximately in half of what it is right now. There are lots of repetitive functions in this jacket. You know, stitching, flat fell seams, stitching and then trimming the seams down. So you really can learn how to sew as you make this jacket. Or you can grow, if you're a beginner, you can grow into a more advanced beginner or an intermediate level sewist. This is definitely one of those sews that at the end of it, you can look at it and say you're super proud that you made it, and no one will ever be able to believe that you made it. When they compliment you, oh, I love your jacket, you'll be able to say, I made it, and they're gonna be shocked. That's such a fun part of sewing. I love that. When people are just amazed that you made it yourself. Okay, so we've trimmed everything down now, and now I bet you can guess what we're going to do, but we're going to turn the waistband right side out, and with a blunt object or pokey object, in my case, because I've got that same knitting needle I keep using, turn everything out. and poke out the corners carefully if it's a pokey object and not a blunt object. Wonderful. Now we're going to give it a good press, but I'm sure you saw that coming because we've been doing that a lot. Turning things out, pressing them. But we just really want to give it a good press. And on the side of the lining, so the lining of the waistband where we have it memory hemmed, pressed over, just give that a good press down. We want to keep that fold that we started with. Okay, we've just pressed everything. Now, we are going to pin the jacket waistband, the right sides together to the hem of the jacket. So, grab your jacket. We can get this iron out of the way. We're going to pin everything to the bottom of the jacket. We want to make sure that we're pinning the correct portion of the jacket to the jacket. So just, I would recommend starting with the side seams, pinning them there so that things align. And starting with the ends, making sure things align. You may need to ease it in a little bit. If any of your flat fell seams were off by just a wee bit, you might need to stretch your waistband ever so slightly to get it fit. Okay, so I've got that end. Now I'm just gonna really quickly switch to the other end because I always find that when I start with the ends, I can get the middle aligned perfectly. A lot easier too. And then I'm gonna move to this side seam here because that's the next tricky, important bit. Okay, now I can ease this in to fit. Oh, I'm so excited. I have been wanting to make one of these jackets for so long, and I'm just super excited to see how it comes out and also to see how amazing all of your jackets come out in the RP sewing group on Facebook, but also in the Sew Alongs group. Wherever you post, I can't wait to see how your jackets turned out. And this is just a quick reminder, this notch here matches with the dead center notch that you should have on your jacket back. So you should be able to line those up, and then the rest should just fall into place. Okay, so now we can do something exciting. We can stitch the waistband to the jacket using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. And we just want to make sure as we stitch that the folded up edge that we did the memory hem for, the lining, is out of the way and it's not going to get caught in our stitching. We don't want it to get stitched in here. And once we've gone over the tabs, we also want to make sure those are stitched and out of the way as well. We don't want them not to be caught up in the seam. So let's go over to the machine and do that now. So this is attaching the waistband to the main jacket, and I am not using top stitching thread, just using regular thread. And keep that folded edge, the lining, out of the way. Up and out of the way. And you're also going to want to make sure you keep your back tab, if you have a back tab, up and out of the way when you get there. I'm almost there right here myself, so just want to make sure that's out of the way. We don't want to accidentally catch it in the seam. So we've just stitched the waistband onto the bottom of the jacket, and what we need to do now is press everything down and up. So what I mean by that is we're going to press the main waistband seam that we just sewed down into the waistband and away from the waist, and then we're going to press the waistband up and over all of the raw edges to hide everything and make it nice and crisp, because after we do all of this, we're going to be top stitching around the bottom of the waistband. So the pressing is one of those really necessary steps that will just make everything look so nice and crisp. So don't skip it, it's important. Okay, so once you've pressed that waistband seam, the waist seam down, you can then start pressing the waistband up and over all the raw edges. And that memory hem that we did before will come in handy, because it should now already be folded, but we're just gonna solidify that fold a little bit more by pressing it down again and in place. And if you want to, you can also do some pinning as you go, but I would recommend pinning from the top side, because this is where you're going to be stitching. You're gonna be top stitching this waistband. So I would definitely pin from the other side, the top side of the jacket. Make sure you get those ends really crisp too, so that'll make a huge difference in the way the jacket looks. And once again here, I'm using my glass-headed pins because if I do end up ironing over them, it won't cause any melting or anything. So glass-headed pins all the way here. We are so close to being finished with our Kingston jackets. I hope you're super excited to be able to bust out your jacket and start wearing it. I know I'm excited. It's just such a great jacket. So classic. Can't go wrong with a denim jacket. Pair it with dresses, skirts, you know, cute colored pants. The styling, sky is the limit. I don't know if you've seen our culottes pattern, but that pattern looks super cute with a denim jacket. If you haven't seen the culottes pattern, you might want to pop up into the Rebecca Page site and take a peek at it. It is like 3 seams and then you're done and you have this really awesome, cute, comfortable pair of pants. So if you've never made pants before, that pattern is an awesome way to start. It is a knit pattern, so you know, don't be afraid of knits, but it's super cute. Super, super cute with the Kingston. So. I'm gonna go ahead and pin this end down. I like pinning the ends down first because I think it, you know, sets up everything in the middle to just fit nicely. Once we have pinned the waistband down, what we can do is top stitch approximately 1/8 of an inch all the way from the folded edge all the way around the waistband on the top side of the jacket. So 1/8 of an inch all the way around. You want to bust out that top stitching thread right now. And if you've done the tabs, there should be just enough room to stitch around the tabs. So you know, it might get a little tight when you get to the tab area. Just be very careful to go around it, but you know, there is enough room to go around it. And then, yeah, just keep stitching. We are so close to the finish line here. So let's go stitch. Okay, we're stitching the waistband to the main jacket here. We're top stitching. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Just go slow and make sure you pivot your needle. When you get to the tab, make sure you don't stitch the tab, you stitch around it.